Welcome to the Politics of Everything. I'm Amber Daines, your host and podcast producer. This is a half hour of power, a podcast dropping every week where I unpack the politics of everything, from money to motherhood, nutrition to narcissism, startups to secularism, the environment, quality, and much, much more. Our guests are seasoned in the field or topic of their choice, even if you've not heard of them yet. This is a non-partisan show. So while I love exploring varied views and get a buzz from a healthy debate of ideas, this is not a purely blue, white, green program. Please subscribe, tune in and enjoy the politics of everything. Who else feels the weight of the life administration burden? For me, 2 businesses, 2 kids under 13, 1 busy husband, and my own needs and goals in fitness, academics, so-called work-life balance and beyond often seem to be a bit much to triumph over consistently and actually get some decent sleep. Enter Dinah Rowe-Roberts. She's a streamlined, systemizing and time and money saviour. After her second child was born, she found herself overwhelmed with paperwork, complicated logistics and to-dos. She knew she needed a new approach, and so together with an old friend, they decided to conquer the problem, and the Life Admin Life Hacks podcast was born. Their mission to minimise, automate, share and delegate life admin. This experience has now resulted in a book, Life Admin Hacks, a step-by-step guide to saving time and money, reducing the mental load and streamlining your life, which was published in January this year. She's an accounting and finance background and was previously director at PwC and the COO for a national mental health provider. So let's get her nuggets of gold as we discuss the politics of life admin. Welcome.
Thanks so much for having me on the show today.
Excellent. I want to go back to your early career. Do you remember your first paid job? And was there anything in that which kind of had sort of the inklings of what your next career move might be?
Well, my very first job was, checkout chick at Woolworths. But my first real job was actually a trainee at Coopers & Lybrand, which is now PwC. So as an accountant, so I have always been a lover of spreadsheets. And so I guess there is that sort of glimmering of, wanting to be on top of things and being reasonably organised. And, that background in accounting and business, it's really led me all over the world, and it's opened my eyes to the corporate world and what was possible. So I do think that then all of that, what you learn in your business life, you so often don't apply at home. So I think that's really what the background has brought to Life Admin Hacks.
So I'm going to ask the big question. What is the number one life admin task you avoid, even with all your knowledge and your hacks that you have available, and why?
Look, I can actually honestly say there's really nothing now I avoid, because my life admin is truly a background hum now that we've got all our systems sorted. But I will admit that in the past, the 2 biggest areas that were problematic for me were getting my will sorted and sorting through digital photos. And I think in both of those things, it's because I wasn't quite sure how to go about it. So for the will, I didn't have a lawyer that I trusted. I didn't know who I should appoint as the executor. It wasn't obvious. And so often, when things feel a bit hard, you just put them off because you're not quite sure how to do it. And when you don't know what to do and you don't have a scheduled committed time or a deadline, that's when life admin, even very important things like having a will when you've got kids, they just don't happen.
And I think you're right, but it's interesting because I think there's some ridiculous statistic of how few people actually have a will, no matter if you're 25 or 55 or beyond. It's something crazy, but it's something that I think we just put aside. But then there's things, I guess, that glare at us like that, proverbial paperwork building up or the tax return because there's a real deadline on that. So I think people can kind of avoid things perhaps, and it sounds like you're great at tackling them. So I think that's kind of what we all need a bit more of, is just getting in there and systemizing it and getting it done.
Yeah, and I definitely think one of, our biggest recommendations in the book is, people often say they don't have time to do their life admin, but somehow they also think it can get done in magic time. They don't have this scheduled time. And, the reality is, we don't want to spend a lot of time on this stuff, but you still have to do it. So if you schedule in what we call an hour of power once a week, and that's when you're going to do your life admin, it's much easier to get get it done and make progress.
Absolutely. So the mental load is something that's been talked a lot about in sort of, I guess, modern society, and particularly for mothers, they talk about that mental load. How does that ongoing flurry of things to do, places to be, impact our effectiveness to get absolutely anything done? And how can we kind of change that or kind of simplify that load, if you like?
Yeah, and I think this sort of monkey mind or mental load or this stress, it appears when there's an imbalance between the demands being made on us and our resources to cope with those demands. So, I think when you think about a lot of those things in life admin, if you haven't set up the systems, that's why you get that stress or that, the mental load. And there's this effect, this Zeigarnik effect that people talk about, which is our tendency to remember incomplete or interrupted tasks better than completed ones. And that's, that what we're often talking about when we think about the mental load, that sort of mental chatter. And each of those incomplete tasks in your brain takes up a little bit of your attention, splitting your focus and making it harder to concentrate on whatever you're currently working on. And then those tasks sort of follow us around. They intrude on our family time, our weekends, and our sleep. Look, the good news is you don't actually have to complete all those tasks in order to feel that mental relief. The research shows that simply having a plan or a system that you know when you're going to get to those tasks can kind of snooze your brain's automatic reminders.
That's great. That's great advice. So online tools are great, and there's loads of them out there. And I must admit that actually adds to my confusion about, do I use this system, or even for clients, am I going to go with Monday, or is there a different Trello, or, all these kind of options for project management in work as well as in, our personal life. How do you find the best ones that suit your needs and goals, whether that be for budgeting or kind of, just systemizing your life? I mean, is there a kind of a rule that you kind of go, yep, this one's great because it does this simply, or is it individual? Like, how do you actually get to that point?
Yeah, and actually in our book, we really, we do make some recommendations about tools that we think have got good ratings and things, but you really do need to find the tools that work for you and your tech and your, that are compatible with the rest of the tech that goes on in your work life and in your partner's life. So it is worth a bit of time investing in thinking about the apps or tools you're going to use. So understand the criteria of what you're looking for in the app before you even really start looking. So, if you're looking for a budgeting app, think about, is it the bank feeds? Is it the alerts? What are the criteria that are going to be really important to me? And then look at a few reliable sites that review apps like, PC Mag, CNET, or Choice. And then what we recommend is never compare more than 3. Look at 3, pick one, and move on. And then once you've picked it, make sure you actually invest a little bit of time in learning how to use it properly. Because I think often people download millions of apps. They don't ever really invest the time in trying to figure out how to use them properly. And so they end up just being a time waster. Yeah.
And then about a year later, I go through my phone, usually that lull between Christmas and New Year, and start deleting apps. And I'm like, I don't even remember downloading that.
Yeah. So if you do want to do something, a password manager is something we like as one of our top hacks in terms of automating your life admin. If you decide you're going to do it, schedule an hour of power to find the password manager, and then schedule another hour of power to set it up. So, be realistic about how long these things are going to take. But the reality is those 2 hours will pay you back 100-fold when you never have to have a reset password ever again.
Absolutely. Oh, my goodness. I think our brain can only cope with so many passwords anyway. But, yeah, you're right. We just need to systemize that like everything else. In my circle, I'm known as a dedicated gift giver. I actually try and be thoughtful and think of what that friend or family member likes or needs, not just what I have in the cupboard or what I would like to receive or what I would like to give. And presents, in my experience, that bring joy need not be expensive, but they definitely, for me personally, I'm a big stickler on, I've got everyone's birthday automated in my calendar. And Facebook, there's no excuses these days, but not giving it to me 4 months later, or making, that receiver feel like, oh, this is just something little. It's nothing big, and sort of lowering the expectation that they're going to be appreciative and happy. What sort of advice do you give us in the book about becoming better, particularly if you're not a natural gift giver? I've got a lot of friends who they probably, to be honest, they tell me I intimidate them with my gift giving because I've listened to them and they're like, I can't give you anything because, you've thought about yours so much that it's a bit of a pressure for me. So how do you actually get people to see it as something that's life-giving and joy-giving and not a burden.
Yeah, it's actually a really interesting topic. And I think that this is where, again, investing a little bit in a system upfront makes a huge difference. So the reality is every year you've got inevitable gifts that you're going to give year in, year out. So for your partner, perhaps your parents, your closest friends, your kids. And so for all of those people who you know you're going to have to give gifts to, you just need a reference list. So a reference list where you can add things to on the go whenever you hear them mention something or you actually even see something they might like, and then you can quickly add it to that list so that then when the occasion's approaching, you can have a whole range of options for you to consult. And then you can buy. I often buy things right there and then if someone does mention something, but I also still add it to the reference list so I can remember that I bought it, because otherwise sometimes you can put it in the cupboard and you've forgot about it. And for those nearest and dearest to you, like have a scheduled time where you look ahead, maybe once a month, where you look ahead at what birthdays are coming up in the next month, so that you can consult those reference lists. I do most all my gift, purchasing online, so it doesn't take a long time because all I'm doing is quickly consulting those reference lists, making a couple of purchases. And it means you can really, look and appear really thoughtful without actually that much mental effort.
Absolutely. And it should be fun. I think it can't be a burden, right? It's a bit of an attitude thing too, where you
it does, and it's
not a chore.
There's nothing more joyful than giving a present to someone who absolutely loves it. It's just, it makes you feel even better than the person who's receiving it.
I absolutely agree. Look, the big one for a lot of people is always cost of living. So how can people become better at saving money or spending less, or is it a bit of both?
Well, I think, first of all, everyone needs to have a degree of like a handle on your budget or finances. And, we don't advocate for a particular budgeting approach, but you kind of need to find an approach that works for you so that you know what's coming in, you know what's going out, and so that you don't have any of that financial stress just because you don't understand that. And once you've really got a handle on what's coming in and what's coming out, you can understand what other areas of life admin you should focus on. So the first one you might want to consider is comparison shopping for major household bills. So when you know how much you spend over the course of a year on your home loan or on insurances, it can help pinpoint where you should maybe focus more effort in comparison shopping. So for most people, home loans, house and contents insurance and private health insurance are the big ticket items that if you review once a year, you can probably save thousands of dollars. And I guess the other one to really think about is we all spend a lot of money on food. And so meal planning is probably another area that if you become quite adept at it, you schedule in to do it once a week, you're going to save an enormous amount on food if you really get a handle on meal planning.
Yeah, no more dead broccoli at the bottom of the fruit basket,
Yeah, and no more sort of wondering at 5 p.m. what's for dinner tonight, or another trip to the supermarket, which is just huge time waster.
Absolutely. And I guess, because we've been living through a pandemic, we've got used to not going to the shops all the time. So I think there's a good opportunity maybe to become more disciplined, because we don't want to just be wandering around Coles or, the supermarkets for hours. We just want to get in and get out, really, with knowing what we're going to do once we get home with all that money we've spent on groceries.
Yeah, and I'm a big advocate for online grocery shopping because you're much more likely to just buy what you need and not get sucked into, buying a few extra things.
Specials that you don't need. As a friend of mine who works in sort of the finance space has always said, just because it's on sale, if you don't really need it, you've still wasted that money. It's that idea that just because that $400 jacket's on sale, if you've got 30 other jackets in the wardrobe, you've just still wasted $200 on a jacket you didn't need.
Absolutely.
So decluttering is easy for some. And look, I have to admit, I have moved 22 times in my 45 years on this earth, but it is boring and hard for some of us. Do you advocate for professionals to come in? I mean, there's been a big rise, and I've got quite a few contacts, including people who've been on this podcast, who do that for a living. It seems like another thing we're happy to outsource. What's your view on that?
Oh, look, absolutely. If it's something you're struggling with and you can afford it, go for it. I think outsourcing generally can be such a contentious topic, but the reality is if there's something that, is going to streamline your life, and decluttering can have such a big impact in your household in terms of saving time, I definitely think you should consider getting some help. It can really accelerate the process, and actually one of the biggest things from, we also interviewed professional declutterers on our podcast, is that they know where to rehome things, which can often be quite a big barrier for people that, if you don't feel like things are being wasted, they know where to go, they know where to take things, which charities take what. And so that can be a really big, help in terms of actually completing the job and getting it out of the house.
Absolutely. And I guess when that comes to that, like I've had the experience, not with a whole house, but in my wardrobe a number of years ago after I had my second child, like just clothes you were never going to wear again, like stilettos and, dresses that you don't use anymore. And I actually had a wardrobe declutterer, and that was amazing because I wasn't spending money on just going and buying new stuff before I'd curated, if you like, what was already there. And she actually even found some new ways for me to combine things I already had so that it wasn't costing me more money. Because I think sometimes people think when they declutter, that's great, but then I'm just going to have to go and buy some other stuff to kind of fill that void in some way. The decluttering only lasts for so long. But I think it's important to think about, I guess, purpose. And I'm not getting all Marie Kondo about it, but it is about having something that you're going to use. And if you don't use it, even if it was your favorite dress when you met your husband 20 years ago, like she just literally put that in a bag and said, do not let your husband see that, just go. Like it's gone. And you never think about it again either. I think that's the other thing. At the time, it's a little bit hard. And I'm someone who's quite good at decluttering because I have moved a lot, but still there's a few things that sometimes they literally have no purpose. And it's okay to be sentimental, but when you say, for example, I was living in an apartment, that's important real estate, that piece of clothing in the cupboard that's taking up, a whole bunch of space.
Yeah, and I think it can apply to other things too, because often when you have so much stuffed in your cupboards, you don't know what you've got, and you actually then end up going and buying the same thing again because you can't find it. So actually having less, it has, compounding benefits, I think, in terms of knowing what you've got, finding it easy to find things and easy to, put things away.
Absolutely. Who have been your greatest mentors in your business and your career, and why have they had such an impact in your life?
It's a really interesting question, Amber. So I'm going to say Barbara Yo was actually one of my very first bosses, years, probably 30 years ago. And she was stylish and smart and fearless. And she was a single mum. And I was sort of in awe of how she managed to do it all. And she also didn't really care about what anyone else thought about her. She was a bit quirky. And so I think, having her as a boss very early in my career really, I guess, changed my mindset about what it means to be successful.
That's great. And it's great that you remember someone perhaps from a long time ago that, at times, you think, oh, well, that person's had an impact now, but they won't have a legacy in my life. But it sounds like you've really remembered that person and how they perhaps made other people feel, as well as, I guess what they represented.
Yeah, definitely.
If we spoke again in a year, what would be the number one thing that you would have hoped to have changed in your business or career, and why?
I guess we're really at the journey, at the point of where Life Admin Hacks is really, I guess, taking off, now that we've had a book published by HarperCollins. And the thing that's probably I've loved the most about this whole project has been hearing the stories of how our ideas have helped other people, change their life. So I guess I just really hope that continues and that it grows, because it's such a big problem, and it's just so gratifying when you hear those stories about people, implementing these things and how much it improves their life and I guess increases their happiness and gives them more time to do the things that are really important to them.
Powerful stuff. So what would be your final takeaway message for us on the politics of life admin?
It's not about controlling everything or being organized with military precision. It's just about setting up your environment, your phone, your computer, to make things convenient, to make them frictionless, make it easy to do the right thing. And then you can just feel confident, prepared. You can respond rather than react.
Absolutely great advice. So everyone, Life Admin Hacks, go get yourself a copy, listen to the podcast as well. It's got some fantastic nuggets of gold in there. If you do want to connect further with Dinah, there will be some details in the show notes. As always, until next time, take care. Thanks so much for listening today. If you've enjoyed the politics of everything, I thrive on your feedback. So please add a short review and share the podcast with your network through Apple, Spotify, and all the usual suspects. I'm always on the hunt for new and diverse guests, so if you or someone you know has a fresh idea you're busting to get out there, please email me at amber@amberdanes.com and my crew will get back to you very soon.